What's up, everybody? It's your girl, Yolanda. Thank you so much for tuning in to Keeping It Real Tea, where I come to you live every Thursday and give you the hottest tea. Today, I have a great show for you guys planned. This show is talking about closing costs. There are a lot of buyers and a lot of sellers who are selling and purchasing property and don't have any idea of what goes on in closing costs. So today, we're going to break that down for you and let you know what goes into closing costs. So, first, I want to start on the buyer side. For those of you that don't know, and it may be very hard to see this paper, but this paper is an ALTA form. Some people call it HUD, some people call it ALTA form. Make sure, very important, when you close a deal, you get a copy of this form because this form lets you know all of your costs. It's very important to know before going into closing what your closing costs are. And closing costs varies depending on state to state. So for those of you that do know me, you know I love real estate and I'm a realtor right here in Maryland. So if you're in Maryland, you're going to get all the tea and you're going to know exact to the point. If you are in other states, you would have to check with your state for what the state taxes and those such should be. But in Maryland, the standard closing cost is about 6% of the sales purchase price. And with that being said, the seller and the buyer can negotiate these costs. So you can negotiate up to 6%. Typical is maybe 2% to 3%, maybe. But if you're doing that 3%, then that's that 50-50, which is typically shown on closing. Now, for a lot of first-time home buyers, you may get savvy and you might go ahead and offer more than what the property is worth. Okay, a lot of first-time home buyers have been doing that. I recommend to be strategic in that. But if they are doing that, some people are offering more than what the property is worth so that you can then go back and get some seller credit or some seller help towards closing costs. So the first section in your sheet as a buyer, you're going to see the sales price of the property. So you're going to know exactly how much your loan how much the house was purchased for. That's going to be the first line. The second line is going to be, and that's going to actually be on the debit side. So those of you who are not familiar with the HUD or ALTA form, it's like a debit sheet. So it shows you debits and credits to the seller, and it shows you debits and credits to the buyer. And in the middle, it's a description form of everything that's being paid, and you'll be able to see what party it is being paid to. So, and going down this sheet, this is a typical first-time home buyer deal. So I'm going to keep it really simple. The purchase price was $150,000. So that's on the first line. You see the credit of that go on the side for the seller, and you see the debit of that go on the side for the buyer. The second line is going to be your earnest money deposit, and you see a debit to that on the seller side, and you see a credit on the buyer side. Okay, so you're going to see that credit, and the reason why you see that credit on the buyer side is because that's going to come off of the sales purchase price. Okay, so they put that money up front. The earnest money is given up front, but it is taken off of the sales purchase price. So for those that don't know, no question is a dumb question. But if you pay an earnest money deposit of, let's just keep it short numbers, we'll say $2,000. That $2,000 is coming off of that $150,000 purchase price. It is not $152,000. So your earnest money that you put up in act of good faith when you're going under contract in initial beginning, that money is put into escrow. And that's how at a title company, which is a third party who's neutral to the situation, who holds this earnest money deposit, depending on how the deal go. If either side does not perform, the seller could possibly keep that earnest money deposit if the buyer does not perform on their side. If for some reason the seller does not perform on their side, then the buyer could be able to get their deposit back. Or if something financially fell wrong with the deal in Maryland, the buyer can get their earnest money deposit back. So it just depends on the situation with the deal. But that is the situation with that. Then on the third line, you're going to see the loan amount. Keep in mind what the sales purchase price is. You have to deduct the down payment from that. That is not the amount that the actual buyer is loaning from the lender. Okay, that's not the loan amount. The loan amount is going to be the sales purchase price minus the down payment. So you got to be able to subtract that down payment. And that amount is going to be on the 3rd, which will also be a credit over on the buyer side. Okay. So in this scenario, you have $147,000 that was put on the buyer side as a credit for the amount of money that they were loaning on their loan. Okay. Here we were able to negotiate seller's help. So it was a seller credit. And this seller in this deal, which was a deal of mine with my client, they did pay $9,000 in seller's credit. This did happen this year. Now, in the seller's market, it's really tight, so it has not happened often. But if a house has been on the market long enough, if things are happening and people are very motivated to sell, you can negotiate. You have the right to negotiate. I also want to let you know, as a first-time home buyer here in Maryland, if you have a realtor and they have not talked to you about the first-time home buyers Maryland transfer and recordation tax addendum, get you a new realtor. This form right here is powerful, and this form is everything. You can negotiate for your taxes and your recordation to also be covered. As a first-time home buyer, you have the right, using this addendum here, to request that your transfer and your recordation taxes also be covered by the seller. Okay, this is only for first-time home buyers, and you do have this addendum, and you do have the right to request that all of these fees are paid. You also can negotiate if you want to split it 50-50. But I have used this form in the past. I have saved clients at least about $3,500 using this form and recordation and taxes. So this form has not been really helpful. I'll be completely honest. In the seller's market, I have used it and it has not given me offers. So I did do it for 2 clients prior to the pandemic. Is this a very helpful and negotiating powerful tool for a first-time home buyer? Absolutely. I recommend it. All people can do is say yes and no, but you did ask. Okay. So always keep that in mind. All they could do is say yes or no, but you at least ask, even if you got a no. What do they say? A no is a closer yes. So never, never, never give up. Okay. So that's the first line that you'll usually see in the beginning. Now we're going to get into some good stuff. You have your prorations and your adjustments. So you have your city taxes, your water, if there's ground rent, those things, depending on the time frame, will be due to either party. And I'll explain what I mean by that. If the seller has paid the, let's say if you have a good seller and they paid their taxes through the end of this year, then that buyer purchasing a property will have to credit and give that seller their money back because they have already spent out money to the end of this year for certain services. Does it happen often? No. Can it happen? Absolutely. And so as a buyer, you want to be prepared for that. This ALTA form, you won't see and you won't know any of this stuff until it's getting a little bit closer to closing. Your lender has requested a preliminary CD from the title company. The title company puts in their fees. The lender puts in their fees. The real estate agent looks and we make sure our fees are good. And everybody's checking this form. This form is so important because 3 days before closing in Maryland, you have to sign your closing disclosure that says you are aware of your fees and you're aware of what your cash is to close. Okay, so it's very important to know that. In Maryland, we do have ground rent. A lot of states may or may not have ground rent, but we do have ground rent. With ground rent here, you can redeem the ground rent at title. So that's another fee that you may occur. If you want to redeem the ground rent, meaning you no longer want to pay the ground rent, some of it is due annually, some of it is due semi-annually. But if you decide that you do not want to pay this additional bill, you can redeem it. And that's something that you want to discuss with the title company and your realtor early on so that these fees can be a part of that preliminary CD and it can be a part of your cash to close or what you're expecting to bring to the table. Okay. Another thing that we have is, we covered the water, we covered the ground, we have the origination fee. So you have some loan charges. When lenders are working and they're underwriting and their underwriters writing up things and they're processing the paperwork, that this is how they get paid. Origination fees are 1% of the sales purchase price. Some can be, it depends on the company. So you want to also check those fees. Ask these lenders, what is your origination fee? Again, you want to understand what you're bringing to the table. And that's another thing when you're shopping lenders in the very beginning. Ask these questions. What is your origination fee? Okay. So you got your origination fee, you got your admin fee. These are all from the lender. Processing fee. If the lender, now this is very important, some lenders will collect appraisal money up front. They will collect when they got to come back and do a reinspection, right? So sometimes you get an inspection done. You get an appraisal done, the appraiser comes out, and the appraiser say, okay, I will appraise this house at 150,000 if X, Y, and Z is done. So that means that the seller and or the buyer, however the terms are negotiated in the contract, will have to fix X, Y, and Z. And then once that those items have been fixed, the lender is going to bring the appraiser back out to verify that that was fixed. That is a charge that is given to the buyer. You may or may not be aware. Some places they ask for this money up front as the services are being rendered, and sometimes you'll find them here on this altar sheet. So that's called the appraisal final inspection fee, as well as the appraisal fee. Any flood certifications that is needed in order for you to have. The title company fees. Now, title companies have a lot of fees. They have their closing fee. They have their doc prep fee. They have to get lien certifications, right? They want to make sure that they're delivering this title to you clean and clear. So it's fees that are associated with them recording this. You also have your recording deed, and that's when your mortgage and your information gets recorded that you are now the owner of this property, and transferring a water bill and everything like that the state may have in your name. So those are some other fees. Title exam, you got your title search fees. These are all fees that will be in, and these are things that will come from the title company that you want to make sure that you are aware of. Sometimes it can get overwhelming because there's a lot of other variables that come into play, and that's where you trust your real estate agent. So many people want to take us as realtors out of the equation. Having a realtor can take so much pressure and stress off of you. If you want to look into researching professionals, if you want to look into finding out who's the best of best, if you have the time, by all means. But a lot of people don't have the time, and that's where it's good to hire a professional, because we know dealing with certain title companies who have cheaper fees. I don't know if buyers know this, but as a buyer, you have the right to choose your title company. Some sellers may sell houses, and they might sell their house, and they might say, hey, I have this title company that I'm already working with, and yada, yada, yada. And it may be good in some cases because they might already have title together. They might already, have a history. And so you don't have to search for information because they've sold this house in the past. And it may be great for that specific situation and scenario. But as a buyer, you have the right to choose your title company. You don't have to go with who the seller is recommending. Okay, that's very important to know. So this is where these fees come in. Now you have your impel fees. This is things like your any adjustments that you might have had on the mortgage, your homeowner's insurance, your ground rent, okay, your property taxes. This is things that the lender is saying, hey, we're going to get all these fees up front. So that way we can get a couple months of these fees collected up front and already have this money in escrow and pay it up. So those are things that comes that you want to know as well. Then you have your title charges and escrow and settlement charges. This is important. These are going to the lender now. So the lender has closing costs, lender's policies, insurance policies, and other things that are also tied into that needs to get paid. So this is important because these are fees that you don't even recognize that are needed. And it's small fees, the closing project with Fidelity National Title Insurance Corp. That's an insurance, right? So it's $50. You got your lender's policy. Okay. That's $500. You have your owner's policy. Okay. 609. So keep in mind, this is all things for a policy to be placed in home insurance policy and making sure that the home is protected. So these are fees that you get a quote up front you give the book and the binder to your lender, just a sheet that shows that you are going to be having this insurance company and what your quote's going to be. And that money is paid by title after settlement. So title has a busy, thing. They're paying a lot of things off. They're holding money in escrow, and they're making sure that they protect the deal and that everybody who's supposed to get paid on the deal gets paid on the deal. They pay the realtors. Okay. So these are important things that you want to do. No. And then you have your government recordation and transfer charges. That's when I was talking to you about this sheet, which for first-time home buyers you can use. A lot of people don't know about this sheet. This sheet could have cost this particular deal. Let's see, how much was it? The client ended up paying total about $3,100. So if this form was filled out in this scenario, the buyer could have saved $3,100. Okay, if they asked for the seller to cover all the recordation and taxes. Mind you, the seller is not paying all of the closing costs. Closing costs, recordation, and tax transfer taxes are two different things. So keep that in mind. This is a very important form that you can use as a negotiation tool to get the transfer taxes and the recordation charges covered. Okay. So again, this is the first time Maryland home buyer transfer and recordations tax addendum. Okay. I remember the first time I used this addendum. Shout out to David. David, my broker, called me and he was like, "How did you get them to sign this?" And I was like, "Well, David, I don't know. For me, I've learned when you do a contract that the contract tells the story. And I was clicking that it was a first-time home buyer. And so I automatically thought when I became an agent and just kind of doing my own contracts, I assumed that I had to have this first-time home buyer's addendum because I had a first-time home buyer. And so I was just automatically putting this sheet into my contracts and I got it signed, and my broker called and he just couldn't believe it because these forms are rarely signed. And it's a powerful, powerful tool. So if you can't get this negotiated, definitely speak to your realtor about this form. Okay. So now we went through the recordation and taxes for the seller and the buyer. Now we're going to go off to pay off. So if the seller has a mortgage balance that they need paid off, now you're going to see on this same form how much they had to pay off and how much money is actually going to that creditor, which is, whoever's the lender for the home sale. Okay. So then you got that fee that goes over. In this particular situation, some invoices was put onto the seller side. So if anything is negotiated, if the seller has any additional costs, you will continue to see things debited from their side. Sellers also pay a huge portion because I don't know how many people know this, and you should know this. It seems like it's standard and people know, but sellers pay realtor fees. Okay. When the house is being listed and the realtor goes to the seller, even before the house is put on the market, they negotiate a listing price. And once they negotiate that listing price, they negotiate the commission price. Now, the commission price can vary to whatever they discuss. It could be a flat fee. It could be up to 6%. Okay. And that's with whatever the seller agrees to. Now, you have realtors who can, and it's legal law to charge up to 3%, regardless of what the seller charges. So for an example, so I don't lose people, if a realtor takes a listing and they do it for 4% commission and they share their commission on both sides. So the buyer's agent get 2%, sorry, guys. Thanks for coming back with me. Even though the seller has agreed to only charge 4%, as a realtor, I can charge my buyer that additional 1% so that by law, I can get a total of 3% on the deal. Okay. For those that need me to repeat it, for those of you that are just joining me, I am talking about understanding your closing costs. Please like, comment, or share if you know anyone that can benefit from this valuable information, because a lot of people do not know what their closing costs entails, what all it entails. As a first-time home buyer, you think you just have a down payment that you're paying, and you don't know what all these closing costs and titles are, but you know that you have closing costs. You don't know what exactly, breaking down item by item, what you are responsible for. If you or someone you know can benefit from this video, please, guys, like, comment, share, tag them below. I am talking about understanding your closing costs, and it's so important because it's things that are not discussed every day. And it's very, very important for you to know so that you can be prepared. It's never too early to work with a realtor. It's never too early to start saving money. The more money you save, the better. But understanding what your cost is and understanding what your rights are as a first-time home buyer, understanding your rights, period. You have the right where you can negotiate some things, and you can ask in this market, if you know that you need help, you can ask and go above what the asking price is, and then go back and ask the seller for that credit help. So that way it can help towards your closing costs. Now, what this would do is it's going to have your monthly payments go higher if this is you in a situation, if it benefits you, and if it makes sense to do it. I'm not saying go out and offer $20,000 above asking price on a property that's going to appraise for, $10,000 less than that. Now, in order for you to get this house, you have to agree to either two terms. Either go back to the seller and see if the seller will take the price down for what the house actually appraised for. And if that seller says no, and you still want that property, now you have to be prepared to pay that $10,000 difference. Is it good for the market you're in? Are you going above water of the other properties in the area? And this is why you need a realtor to let you know the comps. But are you going above the market price? So now when you get this property, do you have no equity? That's not smart. So I'm not teaching you and I'm not showing you to do it in a way where it's not smart. You want to be strategic. You want to get with the realtor who's strategic and that's constantly working each house that you go see in your behalf if it's something that you want. And you also have to be realistic with your situation, where you are, what you can afford, how much you have saved. Okay. So now that I've broken down some of these fees, I want to get into some specific of these fees, because as buyers, again, we talked about your down payment. We talked about your loan origination fees. In some states, you may have attorneys. And if you do have an attorney, if you inherited a house and attorney's working on your behalf, you'll have some closing attorney fees. Okay. I talked about the appraisal, the reinspection, the escrow fee. When you have that earnest money deposit and it's put into escrow, you associate some fees with that. You have some lenders, between a lender and title, they're mailing over important FedEx documents that can't be printed and something has to be sent. That is being charged to you as the buyer. So you want to make sure that you look at those things, and it's not an expensive price. I'm talking FedEx, a couple bucks to send some stuff over if that was a case in your scenario. But so I'm not saying go gung-ho on each and every item. I'm just telling you to understand that these are additional fees that you want to be prepared for. In addition to, so we talked about property taxes, the same thing with the water. It's the same example for property taxes. A lot of times the property taxes are paid ahead of time. So these sellers are getting credits back because the buyer, you can't expect for a seller to pay for taxes and they're no longer living in the property. The seller is going to pay for the taxes at the time that they lived in the property, and then the rest is charged to you. A very important, and this is a nugget here, guys, so pay attention to this one. Prepaid interest. Prepaid interest is charged to the buyer, and this is charged for the remaining days in the month that you are not closing. So if you're closing on the 21st, from the 22nd all the way into the end of the month, you're being charged interest each day because now you're starting your loan. Get it? So in order to save money, guys, and write this down, tag a friend, make sure you're listening, shout me out, guys. In order to save money at closing, you want to close at the end of the month. Closing at the end of the month saves so much money with the prepaid interest. The earlier the month that you pay, you're paying that whole month's interest. So think on that. When it's time to close and you're writing up your contract, if you close at the end of the month, you will save on prepaid interest. If you close at the beginning of the month, you are paying the interest for that month it starts. So that's a nugget. Remember where you heard it from, and drop me a line down on the comments below. If you guys are enjoying this, if you guys didn't have any idea what understanding closing costs was before looking at this video, shout me out, like, share, comment. It is so important for us to impact the next person. And I really wanted to make sure that I was coming to you guys with a show that would impact, that would inspire, and that would get us rattling to think. So many times we are so quick to spend money, we're so quick to do things, and we really don't understand the charges. So it's important to know that. We talked about negotiating your closing costs with sellers, right? You have up to 6% that you can negotiate. So that's another way that you can save money. We talked about redeeming your ground rent. Another way you can save money is getting with these programs. You have the Merlin Mortgage Program. They pay on down payment, and they also help with your closing costs. It's a lot of grants that do the same. They pay for down payment assistance, and they help with closing costs. So get with grants, get with realtors, get with lenders who are knowledgeable in grants and in other situations that can help you save money. If you learned something today, drop me down a line and just tell me that you are sipping and you are learning. For those of you that are just joining, we're talking about understanding your closing costs. I'm your host, Yolanda Brockington, and it has definitely been a pleasure to kick it with you guys today. I am sipping my green tea as always. I'm actually trying some peppermint tea. Or next week, I'll have some different tea, but I'm sipping on this green tea. This is a great weather, guys, when it starts. I love this weather when you can really start sipping tea and just having different things that can just help us be healthy. I'm moving in a more healthy scale, and I just want to give all the glory to God. I want to just move healthy, mind, body, and spirit, and I want to share that energy with you guys. And so again, if you learned something today from closing costs, shout me out, give me a hootie hoo in the comments, and let me know that you learned something today. Again, it's so important to understand your closing costs. It's so important to know what your rights are as a first-time home buyer. And it's so important to know and get with a realtor who is strategic and who understands and very knowledgeable, so that way they can negotiate on your behalf. I'm your host, Yolanda Brockington, and it was such a pleasure tuning in with you guys today. I love, love, love real estate. And please, guys, keep in mind, walk in your purpose. You are here for a reason. If it is to buy a house, write down your goals, write down your dreams, write down the things that you want to do, whether it's related to real estate or if it's not related to real estate. Write down your goals, write down your visions, and like God said, make it plain. And I love one thing, not your vision, but God's vision. Get in line with the Holy Spirit, get in line with the movement of God, and get in line with your purpose for this world and for the kingdom of God. And all things work together for those who love the Lord and called according to his purpose, and allow his power to work within us. May everybody have a blessed day. Hit me up if you want to learn more about understanding your closing costs. Hit me up in my inbox. Drop me a line. I would love to talk with you guys. I would love to communicate more. Let me know what you want to see from me. If it's any topics that I haven't covered, if it's things that you want to learn, don't be afraid to reach out, guys, because you matter and you guys are a big part of my why. The big part of why I'm here is to make sure that I'm impacting and that I'm educating you guys. So I appreciate you guys. I appreciate all the love and support that I've been getting. If you've been keeping it real with Real Tea this far, I really appreciate you. And until next time, keep sipping.